There's a force in this world more powerful than noise, louder than 1,000 voices shouting at once. It's not what you scream, it's what you hold back. It's not how much you say, it's what you choose to say nothing about. Silence is power. You see, in a world where everyone's racing to speak first, those who hold their tongue, those who observe, those who move in silence, are the ones who win the long game. And Napoleon Hill, he understood this deeper than most. His philosophy, his life's work, revolved around a hidden principle that most overlook, a secret strategy whispered between the lines of think and grow rich. He didn't just tell you to have desire of faith or persistence. He showed you how power is preserved and amplified through controlled speech, disciplined thought, and quiet action. Let's talk about why those who say less do more, why those who broadcast every step rarely take the final one. Why is it that when you speak less, your presence gets louder? Think about this when you enter a room and a person is quiet, collected, confident watching. What do you assume? Weakness? Or do you wonder what they know that you don't? That mystery, that control, that's power. Silence doesn't mean absence. It means strategy. It means not revealing your intentions to people who haven't earned the right to hear them. Napoleon Hill said, "Tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it." The difference is subtle, but game-changing, because most people do the opposite. They speak their goals into rooms that will never help them. They leak energy into gossip, doubt, and distraction. So here's the question: are your words building your destiny or bleeding it? In every conversation, every interaction, your silence can be a weapon. When others rush to talk, to justify, to prove themselves, you can sit back and watch their strategy unfold. Because when you're quiet, they expose themselves, every insecurity, every weakness, every lie. Powerful people let silence do the heavy lifting. Napoleon Hill's interviews with over 500 of the world's most successful individuals revealed a consistent pattern. The more influential a person became, the less they wasted their breath. They didn't speak to impress. They didn't talk to validate. They chose words with the precision of a surgeon. Now ask yourself, how often do you speak just to fill silence? How often do you tell people your plans, your next move, your dreams, only to see them crumble before they begin? Could it be that the energy was spent in speaking instead of building? Hill taught that the subconscious mind is deeply influenced by repetition, but it responds to action, not just noise. When you speak your goals into the wrong ears, into an unreceptive world, you release the voltage you need to fuel your climb. The greats know this. They stay silent, let success echo for them. And that silence, it unnerves the average. It confuses the weak. It scares those who pretend to be strong, because silence reveals discipline, and discipline is terrifying to those who have none. So the next time you're tempted to speak your dreams too soon, to vent, to over-explain, to declare war before your army is ready, remember, the more noise you make, the more predictable you become. The more predictable you become, the easier you are to control. But when you hold silence like a sword, no one knows where you'll strike. And now that we've seen why silence commands respect, why it builds a wall around your power, here's the real challenge. Can you use that silence to build? Can you stay quiet, not out of fear, but because you're too focused to explain yourself? Because here's the truth: silence without action is weakness. But silence backed by relentless, focused work, that's deadly. And now we move to the deeper layer, how silence sharpens your mind like a blade, how it connects you with forces greater than noise ever could. But before we go there, drop this in the comments if you've ever given away your power by talking too soon. No more wasted words. You see, when you stop speaking, something extraordinary starts happening. Your mind clears, your senses sharpen, the world around you begins to speak, not with words, but with signals, with energy, with patterns. And in that silence, you finally hear what matters: your own thoughts, your intuition, your inner voice. Napoleon Hill didn't stumble upon success secrets by shouting louder than the rest. He spent over 2 decades studying silence, listening to men like Henry Ford, Thomas Edison, Andrew Carnegie, giants of industry who wielded their words like weapons, and only when absolutely necessary. Hill discovered that stillness is the gateway to power, because while others are busy reacting, the silent thinker is observing, calculating, preparing, strategizing. When you speak too quickly, you rob yourself of clarity. When you stay quiet, you give yourself time to assess the game, learn the rules, and bend them to your will. Ask yourself, how many times have you reacted when silence would have made you invincible? The greatest generals, the most powerful leaders, the sharpest minds in history all had one thing in common: they mastered the pause. Not hesitation, not fear, the pause, that sacred moment between stimulus and response, where power is born, where decisions are forged, where destiny takes shape. And in that pause, silence reigns supreme. Now listen carefully, because this is where Hill's teachings go from philosophical to tactical. Silence isn't just a mindset, it's a tool, a deliberate, intentional act of power conservation. Hill wrote about the importance of guarding your thoughts and surrounding yourself with a mastermind group, a tight circle of high vibration individuals, people who don't drain you with chatter, gossip, or doubt, but amplify your inner conviction. But here's the catch: to find those people, you have to walk alone first. You have to get comfortable with silence so deafening it reveals who you really are. Because only in silence can you ask the questions that matter. What am I building? Why does it matter? What am I willing to sacrifice? What am I no longer willing to tolerate? These aren't questions answered at the dinner table or in group chats. These are answered in quiet rooms when the world stops and your mind finally speaks. And in those moments, you'll notice something terrifying and beautiful. Most people can't handle silence because silence tells the truth. It holds up a mirror and asks, are you as disciplined as you say you are? Are you working when nobody's watching? Are you still waiting for applause to keep moving? Or have you become the kind of person who moves whether anyone claps or not? That's where winners are made. In silence, in unposted hours, in unshared effort. So while the world scrolls, shouts, and seeks attention, you disappear into the lab of life. Because when you master the quiet, you make space for something the loud never experience: alignment. Alignment with your mission. Alignment with your purpose. And here's where things get deeper. Hill believed that silence wasn't just powerful, it was magnetic. When your mind becomes still, when your energy is no longer scattered by noise, you begin to attract what aligns with your frequency. Opportunities, people, resources, ideas. That's not magic, that's physics. Your dominant thoughts shape your reality. And thoughts spoken too soon to the wrong people at the wrong time, they dilute your magnetic field. They send the wrong signals. They invite resistance instead of momentum. Silence preserves your signal. It keeps your energy focused and your intentions undisturbed. That's why the most successful people in the world aren't the ones constantly broadcasting their every move. They're the ones who let results do the talking. Their presence whispers, I don't need to prove myself. And the world listens. You have that power too. But you have to make a decision right here, right now. Will you keep giving your power away, or will you learn to sit in the fire of silence until your vision becomes unshakable? Drop this in the comments if you're ready to become a master of your own energy. Silence is my strength, because once you embrace that, no one can stop you. Once you realize that silence is not an absence, but a force, a field of mental power, everything changes. You stop chasing validation. You stop explaining yourself to people who have no capacity to understand your vision. You stop leaking energy through conversations that add zero value to your mission. Napoleon Hill didn't write for the comfortable. He wrote for the awake, the hungry, the ones who wanted more than average, more than noise. And here's the raw truth he unearthed after studying the world's most powerful minds. Those who move in silence move with purpose. They don't rush to defend themselves. They don't speak to be liked. They don't overshare in moments of weakness. They conserve energy like warriors before battle, because they know the real fight isn't outside, it's within. The fight to stay consistent, the fight to stay focused, the fight to remain silent when ego begs for applause. Because every time you open your mouth, you make a choice. Are you releasing power or building it? You can talk or you can transform. You rarely do both. Look around. Social media is drowning in declarations. I'm going to start this. I'm working on that. I'll prove everyone wrong. But where are the results? Silence doesn't mean inaction. It means you're too busy doing the work to broadcast every step. And that is terrifying to people who only move for attention. Hill emphasized that greatness isn't built in public. It's forged in the dark. When no one claps, no one notices, and no one cares, except you. That's where your character is chiseled, where your resolve is tested, where your greatness is born. If you can't sit in silence without spiraling, if you can't work without showing the world, if you can't think without external permission, then you're not free. You're still chained to noise and silence. That's your liberation. Now let's hit this even harder. One of Hill's greatest lessons was this: you become what you think about. But here's the extension most never realize. You also become what you talk about. Your conversations are spells. And the more you speak of doubt, struggle, and confusion, the more you cement them as reality. But when you hold your tongue, when you speak only when aligned with truth and purpose, you stop reacting and start commanding your world. Your words carry a different weight. They're no longer scattered opinions, they're declarations of intent. And the fewer there are, the stronger they hit. Ever wonder why the strongest people in the room rarely talk the most? Because they don't need to. Their presence has done the work already. Their silence speaks fluently in discipline, pain, vision, and grit. They're not silent because they have nothing to say. They're silent because they already know. There's a level of silence that comes after understanding, not the silence of fear, but the silence of mastery. You can feel it when someone's been through fire and come out focused. They don't need to convince you. Their energy speaks before they do. And here's where it all connects. Hill spoke about tapping into infinite intelligence, a level of understanding that only becomes available when the conscious mind is quiet, when you're still, when you finally listen. The loud never hear this voice, because it's subtle, it whispers, and if your life is filled with noise, distractions, and meaningless conversations, you miss the frequency. That's not just unfortunate, that's a tragedy, because the answers you're looking for are already inside you. They're just buried under the noise. So the silence you avoid, that's the place where the breakthrough lives. Now let me ask you, what could you unlock if you stopped talking for a week, a day, even 1 hour of pure, intentional silence? What decisions would become clear? What lies would dissolve? What truths would rise? What would your life look like if you gave yourself the space to truly hear yourself think? Drop this in the comments if you're ready to hear what your higher self has to say. Quiet mind, loud results. Because that's exactly where we're going next. When you silence the world, you amplify your inner world. You begin to hear the voice that's been drowned out for years. The voice of your higher self, the voice that knows exactly what you should be doing, where you should be going, and who you should become. But you won't hear that voice if you're too busy explaining, defending, or comparing. This is where Napoleon Hill's principles strike hardest. Because Hill wasn't just writing about how to make money, he was writing about mastery, mastery of thought, mastery of discipline, mastery of the self. And none of that is possible if your mind is constantly on loudspeaker. Hill said, self-discipline begins with the mastery of your thoughts. If you do not control your thoughts, you cannot control your needs, your desires, your passions, your actions. But how do you master thought? By creating space for thought to exist. That space is silence, no distractions, no external approval, just you and the truth. And that truth, it's not always kind, it's not always pretty, but it is precise. It shows you your excuses, your wasted time, your unspoken fears. And if you're willing to sit with it, really sit with it, it will show you how to rise. Here's where most people crumble. They can't face the discomfort that silence brings. They reach for their phones. They start talking about nonsense. They fill the space with opinions and arguments and gossip, because that noise, it's easier than looking in the mirror. But you're here because you're not most people. You're here because you're ready to listen to the truth that's been waiting for you. You're here because you're tired of talking and ready to transform. And transformation doesn't shout, it whispers. Hill called it infinite intelligence. Some call it flow. Some call it intuition. Some call it God. Call it what you want. But understand this, you can't hear it through noise. You won't receive it if you're too distracted by what everyone else is doing. You can't access it if your voice is always louder than you're listening. So if you want to change your life, stop asking how and start getting quiet enough to hear the answer. It's already there, but it speaks only when you're ready to receive, not when you're performing. And here's the beautiful twist. When you operate from this place of silence, you begin to attract everything the noise chases. Opportunities, respect, focus, peace. You don't have to chase recognition, because people recognize energy. You don't have to explain yourself, because your actions will speak in languages no words can match. You don't have to compete, because when your power is focused inward, your results create their own lane. It's not about being quiet for the sake of being quiet. It's about being intentional, deliberate, strategic. It's about moving like a master, not a mess, because every word you don't say is energy reserved. Every conversation you avoid is clarity preserved. Every moment of stillness is momentum being forged in silence, and just like that, you become a storm. Not the kind that screams and thrashes, but the kind that moves with unshakable force. So now the question is no longer, can you be quiet? The question is, can you become the kind of person who doesn't need to speak to be felt? Can you live so aligned, so focused, so grounded in purpose that even your silence feels like thunder? That's what the greats do. That's what Hill saw in every legend he studied. They didn't ask for attention. They didn't beg for validation. They became so obsessed with purpose, so immersed in execution, that attention became a byproduct, not a goal. And when they finally did speak, the world leaned in. So before you open your mouth again, ask yourself, is what I'm about to say aligned with my vision, or is it leaking my power? Because from now on, every word is a choice. Every sentence is an investment. Every silence is a weapon. And if you're ready to sharpen that weapon, to let silence carve out the next version of yourself, drop this in the comments. Powerful without permission. Because now you don't need anyone's. You were never meant to be loud to be powerful. You were never meant to shout to be heard. You were never meant to explain your greatness to people too small to see it. You were meant to move in silence, build in silence, endure in silence, and rise in silence until your success makes the noise your voice never had to. And now you know why. Napoleon Hill didn't just give us principles of wealth. He gave us the blueprint for mental dominance. He taught us how to become impenetrable in a world addicted to noise. And if you were listening closely, you heard it. Silence is not the absence of sound, it's the presence of strength. Because when you shut your mouth, your focus sharpens. When you shut your mouth, your work compounds. When you shut your mouth, you stop broadcasting your insecurities and start transmitting your intentions. Every moment you stay silent in a loud world, you become rarer, more dangerous, more magnetic. You become that person others can't quite figure out, and that mystery alone is power. You walk into a room and no one knows what you're thinking. You sit in a meeting and they wonder what you're planning. You share less, and suddenly they lean in more. Silence makes them wonder what you're building, what you're becoming, what they missed, and you. You're too deep in the work to explain it, because you've learned the secret the world doesn't want you to know. You don't need noise to be known. You need purpose. You need clarity. You need obsession without distraction. That's what silence gives you. It gives you back the mental real estate you've been renting out to people who never deserved it. It gives you back the hours lost to explaining yourself to minds too shallow to hold your vision. It gives you back the energy you used to waste reacting, defending, and pleasing. And when you take all that energy and put it behind action, you become unstoppable. You don't just think and grow rich. You focus and grow unshakable. You listen and grow wise. You build in silence and grow into a force the world can't ignore. So now the only thing left to ask is, what would happen if you really committed to this? What would your life look like if, for the next 30 days, you said less and did more? If you held your tongue every time you were tempted to announce a goal, defend a failure, or explain your progress? If you replaced every reaction with reflection, every outburst with observation, every explanation with execution, you don't need to talk about the move you're making. Just make the move. Let your silence become sacred. Let your focus become flawless. Let your work become legendary. And watch how fast your world transforms when you stop sharing your power with people who never earned it. So to every soul listening right now, to every person tired of being overlooked, tired of being misunderstood, tired of giving energy to noise that never gave anything back, this is your moment. No more wasted words. No more unearned access. No more performing for people who don't matter. Your power is in your silence. Your proof will be in your results. So go build something they'll never stop talking about, and never waste another word explaining how you did it. Drop this in the comments if you're walking away with new energy. My silence will echo, because if it does, you've already won.